Bronwyn Lund from BronHolm Tours here. I'm back in my hometown of Nexø, and I'm actually going to do an autumn version of the harbour walking tour, but we'll just be walking backwards in comparison to the tour that I did earlier in the year during the winter. So I hope you enjoy the tour. I've decided to start the harbour tour at the freshwater lake, which is just south of the town of Nexø, because I want to follow the stream that goes from the lake down to the sea and out to the harbour. And we're going to actually look at two harbours. One is a small fishing boat harbour, which just has room for dinghies, and it's really quite a pleasant little harbour with lovely coloured fishermen's huts along it. And then we're going to walk around and look at the industrial end of the harbour. So over to the left here is the stream that feeds into the Baltic Sea on this east side of the island. Now, as I said in the introduction, I have done a winter walk around the harbour, and that really took in the sort of restaurant and leisure end of the harbour, and then some of the industrial end of the harbour, whereas this is really going to focus only on the slipways and the industrial end of the harbour. It also became terribly windy in the winter walk when I was actually out on the harbour, and today it's extremely quiet, so there's no wind and it's very still, so it's a perfect day for filming. So here's the stream. You can see it's on its way out to the sea, and just on the other side of the footbridge there you can start to see some of the colourful fishermen's huts that we're going to walk past in a moment. Just go around to this person's garage. As you can see by the colours of the trees, it's autumn, and we're seeing some really beautiful autumnal colours in the town at the moment. So we'll just wander up here and stand on the footbridge for a few minutes, see where the stream goes out to the harbour. And actually on the other side of these trees it's a bird sanctuary. So you're actually not allowed to walk down here, and it's a great place for bird watchers. And this bicycle track here is actually the old railway line from Baltic Beach, which you can see on the other side of the water there, up to Nexø. And Bornholm had a railway for about 50 years, from the early 1900s, and I am actually planning to see whether I can do a 360 video of the railway museum here. It's very interesting. So now we're coming down into the Dingy Harbor, I suppose you would call it. It's just large enough for retired fishermen and people who are interested in fishing to moor their dinghies. And it's also slightly more sheltered than the bigger deepwater harbour that we're going to go and have a look at and end the tour at. Someone heading out to sea now. As you can see all along here, we have these lovely little fishermen's huts where the fishermen can sit and enjoy the harbour and store some of their equipment. So now we're looking out across the bird sanctuary and walking towards the exit of the Dingy Harbour. And straight ahead of us is more of these lovely little fishing cabins. I'm going to turn the camera off now and just walk through and behind these fishing cabins, because I just have to go past the sewage and the sewage plant and the tip. So both of these functions have probably one of the best views in the whole world. So I'll see you on the other side of the sewage plant and the rubbish dump. I've just walked past the sewage plant and the tip, which you can see behind you. And now walking along and out towards the industrial part of the harbour, Nexø Harbour. And we actually have a great view today of a very flat Baltic Sea. The very large building on the left-hand side is a ship building yard, and many ships have been built in the yard. Not so many anymore, but occasionally the very large doors, which we'll walk past in a minute, are open, and it's possible to see the ships that they've either been building or servicing. But it's not very often. The bottom fell out of the fishing industry in the 1980s when the Baltic Sea was very badly overfished, and the European, what sort of existed as the European Union back then, actually placed fishing quotas on how much the fishermen could actually fish. And that meant that a lot of the fishing businesses and a lot of fishermen went out of business. So as you can imagine, these slipways and the shipyard over here to our left is much quieter than it would have been nearly 40 years ago. There is still some fishing activity going on, and we'll have a look back towards some of the fishing businesses when we get out over to the other side of the harbour. But now, actually, the problem is that the quotas have been very successful in building the stocks of fish up. So there's now herring and salmon and cod swimming around. They've recovered very well from being overfished. So things are looking up for the fishing industry again. But the natural predator of these fish is seals. And the problem that the fishermen are facing now is seals mauling their catch. So the fisherman or fisher person pulls their catch up from the sea, and seals have mauled the fish, which makes them unsellable. You can see some swans over to the right hand side here with their teenage cygnets. And so the seals are a protected species here in the Baltic. So the fishermen are not allowed to shoot the seals or do anything to stop them from eating the fish. So now there's quite a bit of lobbying going on in the EU to try and do something about the situation. So now we've turned and we're facing north and walking north, and we're actually going to just cross over to the other side of the road when we get a little bit further up. You can see how still it is today. The wind turbines are completely still. It's very unusual to see that. And we're just going to walk over because actually you get quite a nice view of the town from this side of the harbour. And as I said before, this is the industrial end of the harbour. So we're just going to walk away from that fabulous view over the Baltic Sea and hone in a little bit on some of these fishing boats. Because I know we have one particular person who enjoys watching these videos. His name is Simon, and he actually lived in Nexø until he was 11, and he left Nexø about 25 years ago, and hasn't been able to return. So these videos have been really valuable for him in being able to see where he spent some of his childhood. And this boat that we're coming up to here was actually owned by his uncle, and still owned by his uncle, I believe, who was a fisherman. The R228. Daughter Marks, she's called. And she really is a classic fishing vessel. Still in use, still going out on the waters. One of the few left. Just walk down here and have a look at her from another angle. Over on the far side of the harbour here is the R60, and that's also a bit of a legendary fishing vessel, and there's actually a bar on the harbour that is named after the fishing vessel, called R60. So that's Daughter Marks in port. It's not often I see her. She's often out for a couple of weeks at a time. But I just thought I'd take the opportunity while the day is so quiet to have a walk around the harbour. We won't be so much affected by a very windy day. Over on the far side there, that grey building, that's actually the nets and ropes shop, where you can buy all your nets and ropes for your fishing needs. And the buildings on the other side of the harbour in front of us are the fishing businesses that are left: Fish Pro Denmark and Bornholms Fisk AS. And there's also a mink food processing plant on the harbour. So there's a mink farm here on the island, and the minks are bred obviously for their fur, and they eat fish. So there is a fish processing plant specifically for making mink food. So we're just going to walk up between these two buildings here and finish the tour with a view back towards our lovely fishing town of Nexø. On the right hand side here is a salmon business. Processing of salmon. So this is kind of the spillover harbour. We've left behind the fishing part of the harbour, and this is where the larger luxury yachts come. This is one of two deepwater harbours on the island. The other deepwater harbour is in Rønne, over on the other side, on the west side of the island. So Nexø and Rønne are the two cities or the two towns that have deep water harbours. So if you have a very large yacht, you need to moor it either here or over in Rønne. And then on the other side of this harbour is the leisure craft harbour, and then you can see the big silos over to our right, almost directly in front of us, and that was the agricultural end of the harbour, where the farms would bring their produce to be shipped out. Got a couple of very large fishing vessels here and some floating homes, some boat houses. That's actually holiday accommodation. People come and stay in those in the summer. So here we are. If we just walk out to this point here, we'll have a nice view of Nexø town and the hills behind, Paradise Berge or Paradise Hills. So that was a tour of half of the harbour of Nexø, including our little lake and a mini harbour where the dinghies are moored. I hope you enjoyed the tour. If you did, please like, comment and share, and subscribe if you haven't already. It really goes a long way to making the channel successful. This is Bronwyn Lund from BronHolm Tours signing off. Bye for now.